came down to New Orleans in January 2016. I primarily work criminal matters for the Cyber Intrusion Squad here in New Orleans. I'm also the coordinator for the Cyber Task Force. And so kind of going into this presentation, the panel took a lot of the very detailed aspects of the presentation, so I kind of get to dodge all the difficult questions on that. But what we'll talk about is kind of what we're seeing on our investigative standpoint and kind of the intricacies of what we're seeing during the cases with kind of what we're looking into in the investigation, what we're kind of requesting from the victim companies when we do go do our interviews and kind of collect the evidence. So the New Orleans Cyber Squad is composed of special agents as well as our intelligence analysts, our support staff, as well as our computer scientists and our IT specialists, as well as our forensic examiners. Now, our computer scientists and our forensic examiners, they handle a lot of the digital evidence collection as well as the malware investigation and kind of the coding behind the evidence that we're looking into. They're the ones that kind of really give us the investigative leads that us as agents need to go out to do our interviews, to go talk to the people and kind of look at the other proxy services or the cloud services that we need to go talk to take that next jump.
A massive cybersecurity breach has exposed
that their personal information may have been
largest security breaches in history.
According tonight, for 87 million.
I think this is bigger than Ebola right now.
every day.
500 million people are infected.
I'm sure kind of, as we're all aware, kind of every day or probably at least every day, we're just seeing something new on the news about another cyber threat or some new malware that's coming out that everyone's vulnerable to, and all the companies, Symantec, Norton, McAfee, are kind of scrambling to re-up the security and the protections to kind of better protect yourselves as companies, customers, and as well as individuals, just to keep your home information safe.
Hi, I'm Jack Vale, and I wanted to see how easy it would be to get personal information from complete strangers. And while I'm at it, of course, freak them out a little bit. Keep in mind when you watch this video, I got all of this information just by searching their personal social media posts. And I got it by searching for the closest Twitter, Instagram, and other social media posts to my current location. Let's go. Sorry to bother you. Is your name Jessica?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jack.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you. How are you?
Good. That's my name.
Are you Stephanie?
How do you know me?
How you doing? I'm Jack.
Did you just make that up and you just said that?
No, Elena, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I was just going to say happy birthday. Someone in your family's referred to as Pops. Is it like a dad or a grandpa or something?
You were tripping me out right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Hi,
Happy
Jack.
birthday to you, too, because I know you were actually, I should have said it to you because yours
How do
was
you know
before
it's our
hers. But
birthdays?
anyway, well, it's been like 7 weeks now or something like that. But anyway, good to see you guys. See you later.
So that's kind of the first step into what we consider social engineering. When I first got down here, I handled a case where the individual's hacking technique wasn't so much as sophisticated as, a brute force attack or trying to run an algorithm through a password. What he did was, when he was able to gain access to the email account to reset that individual's password through the I forgot my password link, he went through their Facebook and their social media account to find the answers to the questions that person had posted on their security. So, the questions that we all set up for our passwords are, what street did you grow up on? What's your dog's name? And just through normal social media posts, it's like, oh, great, it's Spot's birthday today. All right, I got the answer to that question. He went through and reset 51 individuals' passwords, and from gaining access to that email or that iCloud account, he was able to jump through their systems just by browsing on open social media networks. So if you take anything away from the talk today is just on that information that you think is safe because the the security on your password and your access to the account is what you think is secure, because those accounts are open socially to your friends and family and just maybe open to the public in general. Whether you know it or not, they may also be giving away kind of keys to some of the security protocols that you've set in place. And now I'm not stepping on anyone's toes, but we do have a cloud slide up here. We do deal heavily with cloud service providers when we are handling investigations. And so as you all know, the cloud is just kind of an off-site service that provides digital access to your data on the go. Our pros and cons list is, I know they talked about it in the panel, but with it being off-site and no physical access, especially down here in Louisiana with the weather that we have, that does keep your data secure. It also does help on a more of a personal side note that, if your home's broken into or the weather destroys your home, the fact that you have your data not only in a physical location but also a digital location kind of helps keeps your own personal information, whether it's medical records, financial records. It does keep that safe at an off-site location. So we have kind of 6 major individuals that we kind of classify our cases into. So our hacktivist uses their skills and their network to advance their political or social causes. Most people have heard of Anonymous. They kind of pick on the big social political climate and kind of use that as the means for the rationale on why they're attacking this company or why they're attacking this state, this government. Our criminals are using their means and expertise to steal personal information for financial gain. This would kind of qualify under the business email compromises or our money mule network, as well as just a normal intrusion into any corporate or medical industry just for exfiltration of information. Our insider threat is on the very simplest level is probably one of the biggest threats. It's a disgruntled current or former employee that uses their access that hasn't been canceled with the company to either take money or take information to sell it elsewhere, or just to take the network down, or just kind of screw up the day-to-day business of what that company or enterprise works for. On the espionage end, the spies use the cyber landscape to either take state secrets, government secrets, or just corporate information for use of their nation state. Terrorists use any cyber means for military, financial, and the service sectors. One of the things that we're focusing on right now, specifically here in New Orleans, is our critical infrastructure. Just making sure that our energy, power, our water grids are secured from any outside attack, and making sure that those, heaven forbid something happens, that those infrastructures are protected against any attacks that we do see. And through wired or wireless means, just through warfare and military purposes, there is a cyber landscape on the battlefields that they can use either malware or the DDoS attacks to take down military infrastructures, drones, or any frontline defense that we see overseas. So how are they getting into our any protected network? The things that we're seeing just on a case-to-case basis on the investigation side, we're seeing social engineering, phishing attacks, ransomware, man-in-the-middle attacks, any hardware vulnerabilities, or evil twins. Just on the ransomware side, if individually you or your company gets ransomware from the FBI because they found something illegal on your network, and to get your information back, you have to pay the FBI in Starbucks gift cards. It's not us. I don't like coffee that much. But please Ransomware might be one of those things that people don't know that the Bureau investigates, but we are looking at all ransomware variants, whether it's here in New Orleans or just across the Bureau in general. There is an office that is looking into every version of just about every ransomware that we do have. So with the anatomy of a hack, a lot of times these criminals are doing recon into the system. They're scanning the ports, they're seeing what the vulnerabilities are on your firewall and on your network. And as soon as they're able to get into your network, whether that's through an email phishing attack, or maybe they're just able to exploit one of the vulnerabilities on your firewall, they establish that foothold in your network. They usually go through the lowest means of security, the easiest way in. Once they're in there, they scan your network, they try and take as many credentials as possible to jump up to a network, a server, or a computer that has more access into the data that they want or the financial records than they need. Once they escalate those privileges, they just kind of start the cycle all over again. They continue doing their recon, continue taking those credentials. They move through the system laterally, and they expand into as much as the network as they can until they find what they want. Once they take the data out that they want, even though they may be done for that instance, they can just sit on that network and kind of create that back door. So if there's a new merger or a new company acquisition, they have that back door in place just to kind of walk right back into your network and see if there's anything worth taking or if there's any new information that they might be able to exploit on the outside. So the weakest security link is the individual user. Also, putting a untrusted flash drive into a system with porn on it, don't click on that link. This kind of touched upon, I know what the panel was talking about with the education of the employees, and it's not important enough to harp upon it even more. The more education that the employees and the individual users have of the cyber threat landscape and kind of what we're seeing on the investigative end is one of the easiest ways to boost security and boost that network protection. So this was actually a personal case, well, not personal for me, personal for the New Orleans office. We had a New Orleans agent that was up in Baltimore for a conference, and he actually went to pull cash out of this ATM. Can anyone see any? It's kind of tough on the screen up there, but can anyone see anything on that screen that sticks out as kind of funny? So here, everyone seems to be pointing out the card reader looks funny, as well as that plastic piece right above the screen is actually not a part of the normal ATM. So the skimming device was mounted on the card reader, and the pinhole camera was attached to a battery-powered flash drive that was recording all the PIN numbers that were going through. So that investigation led the Baltimore office to this guy's social media account, in which he posted all these pictures. So just through the course of the investigation, as the cyber threat landscape is always changing. One thing that we find today is tomorrow is always going to be different. As soon as we have something nailed down, it's going to change, and we're going to be behind the 8 ball the next day. And the legal system's kind of in that same situation, but in New Orleans, we have had some successful prosecutions. A former employee of Georgia Pacific had become disgruntled with his job and his employer, and he had control of the network. He installed the network. And he had installed backdoors. When he was let go, whether his access was cleared or not, he was able to walk right back into the system, and he overcharged the power plant, which caused it to kind of run out of control, and they lost productivity. We were notified soon enough of the incident that he had used his own login credentials to go in through the back door. Search warrant on his house. The computer that he had used at his house was still logged into the company's network, and at that point it was just easy enough to collect the evidence and make the arrest. He was sentenced last summer to 44 months, and he has to pay back I think it was just under $3 million in estimated loss of the company. Mr. Guidry here, he was a well-known hacker online and known in most forums. And so the case kind of came about where it's just kind of a collection of all of the criminal activity and kind of all of the little hacks that he was known for, and kind of gathering the evidence from the victims to tie back to this individual. He came on our radar. He was originally a case out of Dallas, and when he moved into the state, the case kind of followed with him, and the case got spun up when he called the New Orleans office to complain that other hackers online were taking credit for things that he did. So he just kind of added to the list of things that we needed to collect, and it led to a search warrant of his home and the evidence. He was sentenced to 1 year and a day and 3 years probation. So with any supervision or any probation that comes with a cyber case usually tends to be, they're not allowed access to a computer, or if they are, it's on a supervision basis, and they're really not, they're obviously not supposed to be doing what they went to jail for. Our Mercedes case was actually more of an intellectual property crime. However, the 3 subjects that were indicted on it was they had taken a Mercedes diagnostic tool for Mercedes garages, and they recreated their own and resold it as Mercedes property, and were making $5,000 a pop on all these sales to all these garages to allow them to work on Mercedes. However, they didn't have the licensing or the actual Mercedes technology, but they had created it themselves, just in their own auto shop. Mr. Waddingley had created fraudulent coupons where you could go buy a stick of deodorant and win a 72-inch TV. So he had defrauded 29 large realtors of, he sold more than $1 million in coupons, but I think the loss was north of $10 million, in which these companies were giving away free products on what they thought were legitimate coupons. And so this is just kind of going to harp on probably mostly of
we've been hearing a lot about cybersecurity lately, largely because of what happened to Sony. Companies and individuals are more concerned about the safety and privacy of their information than ever. President Obama has unveiled a number of new proposals this week to crack down on hackers, and he plans to address this in the State of the Union speech on Tuesday. And it's great that the government is working on this, but the truth of the matter is we need to do a better job of protecting ourselves. You know, the most popular password in the United States is password 123. And as long as that's the case, we're vulnerable. So today we sent a camera out on the Hollywood Boulevard to help people by asking them to tell us their password. And this is how that went.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a Chihuahua Papillon,
And what's its name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And where did you go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
Hempfield Area Senior High School.
Oh, when did you graduate?
In 2009.
Oh, great.
It's like my cat's name and then just like a random number.
Okay. Have you had this cat for a while?
Yeah, she's my childhood pet.
Aw. And what's her name?
Her name is Jolie.
Jolie. So like a password of yours would be Jolie and then a number.
Yeah.
Like number 1?
Like my birthday,
Oh, when is your birthday?
June 12th.
Oh, nice. And what year were you born?
95.
Oh, great. So Jolie, 6/12/95.
Yes.
Got it.
So you mean to give my password right now? No, I cannot do that.
But we all want to know what it is so we can tell you if it's strong or not.
Oh my goodness. Let me think. Okay, one is Tel Aviv. Yeah. 468, and then Israel. It's only 3, but it's for me it's strong enough.
Ireland, 1, 2, 3, 4. Gemma, 1, 2, 3. Spelled Gemma.
Well, most of them are Italian.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Like what's a good Italian password?
My grandma's name,
What's your grandma's name?
Maria.
Maria. So Maria is your password?
Oh yeah, now you know my password. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, the important thing is they learned a terrible lesson.
So what can we do to protect ourselves either through work or personally? It's been talked about already before, but have a different password for each account. Use the privacy settings. Make sure that those privacy settings are probably a little bit stricter than you feel they would need to be. Kind of going back to that social engineering where they're able to use those open networks to kind of learn those answers to your security questions. Remember who you friend. If you don't recognize the individual that's friending you, I'm not saying that they're all bad people, but that's just an easy way for them to gain access to that account or to learn more information about you. I know that one of the individuals that I work with, his grandmother was targeted when she was getting and this is kind of an off story, but his grandmother was getting targeted by friends of hers that had passed away, and so she kind of knew that when these accounts were friending his grandmother's Facebook account, that either the friend request has been pending there for a little bit, or most likely it's not a family member trying to make a connection. It's most likely an individual just trying to gain a little bit more information. Limit access to your location. We saw the Instagram video where that geolocation on any of these social media apps is just kind of making you a target, whether it's a target there individually at the place where you are, or it's just letting the criminal know that you're not at home. They can tell where you are at a specific point in time just by following any social media or Instagram, Facebook, and so just keeping the physical safety of yourself as well as your family and your house is just paramount in this world. They talked about the lock symbol and the HTTPS on the browser. Keep an eye on that when you're surfing on the web. Don't share other people's personal information. It's kind of the golden rule. Treat others as you would want yourself to be treated. You don't want your personal information out there. Don't be passing on other people's personal information just to make them more vulnerable. And don't share your passwords or anyone else's. That one kind of goes unsaid, but even if you're, you're letting your wife or husband or girlfriend or just a friend log into whatever account it is, either if they share it or if they leave that that public computer unlocked, that information's open and it just makes you more vulnerable. And if you share the one password, chances are you're using the same one for another account, and just jumping through the systems and jumping through these networks is just gonna open yourself or your company up to just a kind of a whole world of access. On the business email compromise or the email account compromise setting, if you get an email that you weren't expecting with an attachment you weren't expecting, or from a person that you don't recognize, kind of verify that. Make a phone call to the individual that the email says it's from to make sure that they did send the email and they did send that attachment. The cyber criminals are getting very sophisticated in their emails. They're either able to, if they have access and they're actually sending it from that email account, that's when you need to verify with the individual that they did or didn't send that email. But they are able to spoof those email addresses where it may come in from a different domain or a different email address, but when your inbox receives it, it looks like it's from your CEO or your best friend. And generally those attachments, those links, that's where the malware is kind of going to get onto your network by you opening that attachment or clicking on that link. On an evidence standpoint, or getting your business back up and running, or just kind of getting your personal life back up and running, offline backups of your data is paramount. It's important. It's the easiest way to get back up and running. With some of these new some of these new ransomware variants, we're working to try and figure out whether or not the encryption key's been released, or if we have any access to try and get into to break that encryption and just kind of get your information back. But if you have offline backups and those offline backups weren't touched or weren't affected and they're recent, you can get your life back on track or your company back on track by using those offline backups. But it also, if they're offline, they're, for the most part, they're not vulnerable to anything that you're seeing on your network. And the sooner you can get them back online, or the more often you can get your information backed up to those offline servers, it's just more security for you in the long run. And I went through that kind of quickly, so does anyone have any questions? Unfortunately, it's not, just due to policy guidelines on disseminating the information. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That actually, I always forget to add this in there. But to answer your question, so generally that... Oh, sure, sorry. She asked if the FBI tracking ransomware was on an individual reporting basis, or if there's a kind of a larger body or an overarching network that's tracking either victim notifications or ransomware attacks. So generally speaking, on a case, kind of on an investigative standpoint or a case-by-case basis, the information or the cases kind of come to us when the victims, then we're aware of a victim attack, or the victims notify us. So they are kind of on an individual basis. However, with that being said, the Internet Crimes Complaint Center, so IC3.gov, is our kind of our online reporting center for any internet fraud, any cyber criminal activity, or just any reporting that you want to do kind of on that network for us. You don't necessarily have to be a victim or have to have lost personal information or financial information or money. If you happen to get just a phishing email at work or a phishing email personally, and you just want to let us know about that, you can go to IC3, you can fill out the form. I believe there's an attachment upload section where you can put a copy of that email in there, just so on on a data gathering standpoint, we can look at that information and make sure that we have kind of that bookmark in there. So if someone does fall for it, and that case just kind of grows victim by victim, we have that one extra piece of data that we can take a look at to hopefully move that investigation forward. But I do know that the field offices that are handling those ransomware investigations, they are kind of, through talks like this where, they're making contacts, whether those contacts are the victims or not, they're getting reporting aside from the victims of, from those ransomware attacks. It's why we do this. Not a lot of people know what the investigation or what the FBI on the cyber standpoint is investigating. We're looking at everything at this point. If it's not going to be a case, we can at least help the locals kind of combat some of the smaller stuff. And on the New Orleans Cyber Task Force, we handle both the internet fraud and the hacking and the ransomware on top of that.
Are there, on that site you talked about,
Mm-hmm.
upload the email, are there instructions on there that tells people how to get the header?
Absolutely, and if the instructions aren't there, I haven't actually been on there in a while, but if the instructions aren't there on the header information, I know Microsoft and Google kind of have a how-to on how to pull the header information out of there as well.
Yeah, a lot of users don't know how to do that.
No, that's a great point, and if it's not there, I can definitely run that up the chain.
Can you talk about the InfraGard program and how it works with businesses, what the goals of that program?
I can absolutely do that. So InfraGard is our public and private sector partnership where I don't know if there's any InfraGard members in there, but the cyber program here in New Orleans hosts the InfraGard sector in Louisiana. And what it is just kind of a meeting of the minds of either the executive board of these public and private sectors, these the IT managers or the IT directors of these companies, where we can kind of have a monthly or quarterly talk about what we're seeing on our end on the cybersecurity standpoint, and kind of what they're seeing through their network, whether it's we blocked all of these foreign IPs, we weren't intruded on, but we didn't have any loss of information, but it's kind of an information sharing aspect. The InfraGard kind of spans out into, it's kind of also goes with that network of the victim notifications, and just, it might not be the parent company that gets hit, but it's one of their vendors. The vendors don't know to report it to us. They mitigate it or they handle it themselves, but the parent company is the one that lets us know, and we can kind of go out and help them look into those those attacks that they may have not reported to us. And I believe the InfraGard application is online, and so if you're interested in doing that, by all means, come talk to me. I can put you in contact with our InfraGard coordinator at the office, and we can get you the information that you need to join that.
And the premise of the program is that most of the hacks are going on in the private sector. You need access to that information to do your job, right? So we have all the data. If we're somehow not sharing it, you may have some issues with what you want to share with the FBI. I got that. But, that's the premise of the program, is to get some more data to the FBI so they can do their job, because they only see so much which is reported, right?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt Jimmy's questions. Today's my 7th day on the job here in New Orleans. I just transferred in from our Houston office. Just a couple things that I wanted to highlight that may not have been in this presentation. This is more geared towards the private sector. That a lot of times, I saw it this week, company calls, says, hey, we think we're a victim of a BEC or some other incident. We say, okay, what evidence do you have kind of set aside? And they say, oh, we're already wiping our server. Well, I'm sorry, not to be rude, but we can't help you. If you don't have evidence preserved, there's not a lot we can go off of. So what we do ask, if there is a breach, I guess that rises to the level of us coming on site, we have a variety of options. please have an incident timeline ready to go. The knee-jerk reaction for a lot of folks is to unplug your server from the network. We have some tools and techniques that we can deploy on your network to try and, I guess, catch the actors in the crime. That also involves someone with the authority, such as the CEO, having to sign consent forms. That's where legal gets involved, and which is fine, but that just kind of sometimes slows the process. So I'm not saying don't have the legal aspect worked out, but in an incident response plan, kind of know what you can and cannot do or what you're willing to do on your network. So with that said, please have logs. Please have the right folks in the room if we do show up. Here, I guess in the FBI as a whole, we have a unit at headquarters called the Cyber Action Team. My little joke, it's like the FBI SWAT team, but with faster computers and bigger hard drives. But they are a full-time folks at our headquarters who are, I would say, we are technically trained, but they are technically trained kind of off the charts. And if it's something we can't handle here locally, we can try and bring them down for a matter of days to try and triage and diagnose your network. Another key is, though, we don't do remediation. I'm never going to tell you call vendor X. Everyone kind of knows some of the big IR firms out there. We have to be very software neutral, hardware neutral, so we're not promoting any sort of company. So we're going to come and investigate. The goal is to try and find the bad guy, whether it's a nation-state actor or a criminal actor, and where possible, try and bring prosecution against them. So I didn't want to steal Jimmy's presentation here, but I just want to make sure from the private sector, IC3 is more for your, I would say your internet crimes. Someone lost, some money, could be a small amount, could be a large amount, but the cyber task force is really supposed to be focusing on an intrusion into a network, whether that's us coming to you saying we have indicators of compromise, which we know you've been compromised, but you may not know you've been compromised, in which case we can try and deploy some techniques, as I mentioned, to kind of monitor and watch to see if the bad guy comes back in, or we try and gather what evidence we can for a criminal prosecution down the road. So I just want to throw those few things out there.
And that actually brought up a couple other points. We got another call this week from another victim company where the information was from December. So if, as soon as you guys find that, you think you're a victim of a compromise or you have indicators of it, and you think it might be something that we want to know, please let us know as soon as possible. We always joke that Friday's the busiest time on the cyber squad because the company gets attacked on Monday and their IT department is trying to fix it, all week. And then finally they call the FBI on Friday when, they think we need to kind of step in. And at that point, some of the mitigation, may or may not be done, or, at that point, some of the information might be stale or wiped over when the logs get rewritten. But please, call us sooner rather than later. And going back to the mitigation and the remediation, one of our task force members is a part of DHS, and I know they do, you can apply for it, and they'll do free pen testing and red and black team network intrusion detection. And they will help you with that mitigation in the case of the attack, or they will help you just kind of shore up your network and let you know where your vulnerabilities are. So if you're interested in any of the information, whether it's InfraGard or DHS or the Cyber Task Force or just the Cyber Squad in general, please, by all means reach out, call the office or just come talk to me after this. I'd be more than happy to talk to you guys about it. So on the second half with the critical infrastructure, that's kind of where InfraGard's our biggest help there. Because we're meeting with them so often and we're working closely with those private sectors and those critical infrastructure programs in communities, right now, I like to say we're kind of at the forefront of the defense on that, to where we, we're kind of, instead of being kind of reactive to those infrastructures getting hit, we're being a little bit more proactive on making sure those network securities are a little bit more safer, and we're not handling those calls as often as we should. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm not answering the first part of the question, but for the first part of the question, the kind of the biggest threat that we're seeing is right now, we're seeing a lot of email compromises. It's those, it's those lower end on the very basis, the very baseline, that human factor. The human factor is always going to be kind of the biggest thing that we're going up against without the lack of education on the landscape, and that's the easiest way around some of the security protocols that are, the security protocols can be as high as we want them. If the employees or the individuals aren't following them, then that's kind of where, that's the biggest vulnerability that we're seeing kind of across the board on an investigative standpoint. Anyone else? Oh, sir.
Does InfraGard engage K-12 space at all?
That I don't know. I can find that answer out and get back to you on that.
And the second question
Yep.
was, does the data from InfraGard get incorporated into the Veris community database?
I'll have to get you that answer as well. Sorry. Anyone else?
Does reporting actually help? So I'm a sales guy, so
Mm-hmm.
I get some interesting requests. Some Indian princess that wants some hard drives. We've been lucky enough to report them all. I've reported a few.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to know that my time was.
It does. Either, either depending on the volume of, the specific individual or the specific threat, the reporting does help, whether it's the research that's going into trying to identify the individual, because, more points of information are always better than less. But just on the reporting aspect, if we have, if we're working on a case here in Louisiana and it's kind of spanning just Louisiana, but you're reporting something out of another state or another region, and that report, whether it's going to that office or the headquarters body, is coming back to us, that's just going to help expand our case, get more bodies involved, because we have, we now have another office involved on that. But the reporting, specifically all the IC3 complaints that are coming in, or all of the phone calls, or the individual reach outs to the cyber squad in whatever office you're talking to, they're all looked at, they're all reviewed, they're all researched, the data points are logged, and it's being sent for a follow-up review in that office for either for immediate investigative action or just kind of for addition to an already ongoing case. Mm-hmm.
So if it was a school district in Acadiana, they were spoofing the purchaser.
Mm-hmm.
The purchaser taking a PO for X.
Right.
That person happened to be on vacation. I called the supervisor and said, somebody's spoofing you right now. Or spoofing your employee. Is giving them a heads up going to help? I'm just looking for, I guess, some level of validation or
So.
how to help other companies around.
Absolutely, talking to, so you went back to the school and said that they were being spoofed. So absolutely, as soon as either that you're being spoofed or intruded on, or a victim's being, being targeted, by all means, that initial communication is going to help either stop whatever fraudulent activity is, stop the intrusion, because they can mitigate sooner rather than later. But Matt had kind of talked upon that, so that would also be the perfect time that if we can insert ourselves into the process at that point and can kind of, work the investigation from like the ongoing criminal activity. We haven't gotten a call at the office where we're able to insert ourselves in the middle of that, but.
So I tried to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
He said he
IC3. Was that our office? You come get my phone number after this. Mm-hmm.
Basically, if I don't know you, if I haven't met you in person and it's $1 million sale, I'll drive wherever you're at.
No, I believe it. So just on a personal story, so I just bought a house maybe a month or two ago, and I called the titling company to confirm the wire information. And I made them hang up and call me back from a different number to a different number to confirm it a second time. And she thought I was insane, but I see fraudulent wire transfers all day, every day through the email, and it was just, you know, I may have been too paranoid, but it happens all the time. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you guys.